Hey everyone, so I am recapping Marco Polo season 1, episode 5, I think it is. Yeah, episode 5, and it's titled Hashshashin. Um, so the episode kind of, immediately starts off where Marco and Kublai have been talking. Um, and you see Hundred Eyes, walking around in the courtyard, apparently hearing something that he thinks he hears, um, and where the episode kind of left off, where Kubat was talking to Marco. He is hit with a dart, and it is poisoned. And then whoever it is there to kill Marco too, because he's a witness and everything. Um, then Hundred Eyes and Biyumba um, show up and finish off um, two of the assassins, leaving, and Marco stops Biyumba from killing the third. Um, and tells him that they need him to tell them who sent them to kill both of them. And it's revealed when Jingham goes to see his mother and his father, who's now laying on the bed, that Kublai was poisoned with yellow scorpion venom. That's told to Jingham by his mother, who then says that he might not survive the night. And then Jingham is wondering where his guards were and why they were evaded, or why the three assassins evaded all of them. And then it goes to the war council being summoned. Ahmed says that they need to go and avenge who violated them, but many people, including Jingham, says that they don't know who it was, so they can't go just unanimously going to fight Sidao, who Ahmed thinks did this, because uh, it, as it's revealed later in the episode, it, what if it turned out to be someone who uh, it wasn't Sidao, and it could be someone, some other foreigner. Um, so Jingham then wonders how they got around the defenses, to which Hundred Eye says that they moved under the water and through walls, and that the assassins were trained by an old man in a mountain. Um, and Hundred Eye says that they are the Hashshashin, um, but Jingham says that uh, they were crushed by his uncle before Jingham was born. Hunchai said that they were trained, like, or it seems like Jingle, or Hunchai says that they were trained like the Hashshashin were actually mercenaries. Um, Jingle asked Hunchai if they should go hunting myths, um, but Hunchai says to be open to the possibility, like his father would, because like it was pointed out that they can't exactly go go through this like full-on war with Sadao based off of um, based on their hatred for him. So um, okay, so I amend what I said before when I said Jingham was one of the people who thinks that um, was it Sadao, because at this point he thinks it's Sadao because he then says that they're demons like to the south. That was my mistake. Marco then says after Jingham says this that that may not be true. Jingham tries to protest Marco being there because Jingham still portrays um, Marco as this outsider, um, and his mother tells him to listen to Marco. Marco says the Hashshashin are rumored to be live by a guide that Marco had used a few weeks before, I think, and that it's in a place not too far away. Um, and then Jingham says to Marco that he will be accompanied by Byumba to confirm whether the song had any complicity in it. And when Jingham leaves, Marco then goes after him and tells him that if Mongol warriors are to go dressed as themselves, that the Hashshashin will only see them as a threat. And if they and him disguise themselves as merchants, they and disguise themselves as people who will just basically be selling things, the assassins then might have a chance at finding out who did this to Jingham's father. So Jingham approves of this, and says that Marco needs to go, get their horses ready. Then Kogachin is told by her protector friend, I still don't know who his name is, that there was an attempt on the Khan's life, and that Polo was to lead a group of people to find out who did it. Then you see 100 Eyes telling Marco in the next scene that the Hashshashin are not ordinary warriors, and that Marco is to travel beneath the skyline, so that they are not found, because or that the Hashshashin are not don't want to be found, and that the Hashshashin will then find them. And then in the next scene, we see Marco preparing to leave. And as he's doing that, Kokachin comes up and tells him that all gates will be open for him if he bears the golden template of the Khan. He asks why she's doing this for him, and she's like, well, if the Khan dies, and there's no one that will be around for you, to advocate for you. So in the next scene, in Zhanyang, Sadao shows the dead bodies of the people, of the ambassadors that Empress sent, under the guise of Sadao, that they are dead. Even though it's very clear that Sadao was the one who killed them, in the previous episode, basically. And so he's saying all this stuff about how this is what happens when you deal with barbarians, and that cruelty must be dealt with cruelty, and it's time for war, and yada yada. And someone comes up behind Sadao and says that Sadao can do whatever with the Empire as he wants to, effectively pretty much nixing what the Empress said previously at the end of the previous episode. And then you see Jingham sitting in the royal court, and Ahmed comes up to him and tells Jingham that it's time to act, but Jingham says that Marco may prove that Sadao had nothing to do with it. Ahmed is all like, that's odd, since Marco is pretty much doing it to save his father's head, and or Jingham, no, wait, what I meant to say was Ahmed says to Jingham that it's odd that Marco spoke so surely of the assassin's whereabouts. Um, but Jingham then responds that Marco is only doing it to save his father's head. And Ahmed's response says, exactly. Would there be something you won't do to make sure your father's dreams should come true to Jingham? And Jingham says no. And asks if Marco will be doing this to cover up transgressions or something like that. Then it cuts to Bayamba and Marco sitting in this place where they decide to rest for a little bit, and Bayamba is the son of Kublai, but this his mother is a consort, or was a consort. I'm not quite sure if she's still alive, but he's a son of Kublai and a consort, and so he's basically like the bastard child of the two sons. And so he's thanking Marco for saving someone's life, but Marco's like, well, no, thank you, Bayamba, because if it wasn't for Bayamba, that both the Khan and Marco would be dead. And then Bayamba's kind of resolutely saying, Jingham is Khan. And Marco asks, I assume based off of the tone of Bayamba's voice, if he thinks Jingham is fit. But then Bayamba angrily says no, and asks Marco the same question, to which Marco says that this isn't his home, he's only a guest, so it's not his place to judge his host. And then Bayamba goes off on this little mini story about how the food that he's currently eating is a food that he used to hate because his mother, because it tasted moldy or sour or something like that, and his mother always made him eat it. And then Marco asks if Bayamba was ever close to his mother, and Bayamba's like, yeah, because the bastard children of the emperor are not always treated right or properly or anything like the proper heir. And then Bayamba asks Marco if he was ever close to his mother, to which Marco explains that his mother died when he was young, and that he was raised with his aunt because his father was never around, and that he only met his father 3 years prior. And then Bayamba asks if Marco is doing this to save his father's life. He says hopefully by finding out who tried to kill the Khan, that hopefully his father will be spared. And then it cuts to later that night, back in the city, where Mei Lin leaves the little group that she's supposed to be in, to give a note to the messenger, to give to her brother, to tell him what is going on and to write swift. She also says that Sadao must know, but the guy's like, well, do you think that Sadao doesn't already know? Because what if he actually had something to do with this whole thing about the Khan? And questions if she even considered that. And when he tries to leave, first he tells her to leave and then deliver it herself, and then tries to leave, but she stops him and tells him that that didn't give if Sadao didn't give the command, then her daughter lives or dies by staying in Mongolia, and gives him the message anyway to give to Sadao. Then the next scene goes to Jingham going to Yusuf to question the remaining assassin. And all the assassin says is that he's destined for paradise and for death, and that's all he claims to know. And then you see Yusuf running a knife over the assassin's mouth. And Jingham asks if the assassin knows anything, and Yusuf like he may or may not know, and so Jingham orders Yusuf to find out for sure what if he definitively knows anything. Then when Jingham leaves, he stops by Niccolo and Mateo's cell to talk to them. He basically asks Niccolo why he named Marco what he named him, and Niccolo explains that he didn't name his son Marco at all, because he wasn't there when Marco was born. And when Jingham asks him why, he pretty much says that he was away on travels, and that and so basically Jingham tells him that he abandoned Marco before he was even born. But Niccolo's like, well, I did it to make a name for my family. Jingham says, so you did it for a legacy, and his legacy and everything. Niccolo's like, well, yeah. But then, Jingham pushes Niccolo up against the wall and is like, well, do you really think Marco wanted that from him? And Jingham tells Niccolo that before Marco left, Marco practically begged Jingham to spare his life, even though Niccolo has, transgressed against Marco, and Marco could have died because of that. And then Jingham leaves and goes to wherever he goes to. Marco and the other merchants make it to the outpost that Marco thinks the Hashshashin are at. And immediately everyone stops talking. And I must say that I laughed at that part because I was like, well, okay then. Then you see him try to sell his jewel. I think it might be an opal. I put down jade even for no apparent reason, because I wasn't thinking when I wrote that down, because I know jade I think is a shade of green. So anyway, so all people who are wanting to buy this jewel from him basically are rebuffed by Marco, because Marco's like, well, I'm only willing to speak to the old man, and everyone then leaves the table. And then it cuts back to Mongolia, where Jingham sits by his father and wonders where his father is, I guess spiritually, or consciously. And his mother is like, well, he will come back, but Jingham is skeptical. And then Jingham's like, he is wondering where her faith he'll come back comes from, and she said it's rooted in what will happen if he doesn't wake up. And so he then leaves again, and then back to the outpost that Marco and Bayamba are. There's this guy that comes up to them, and he makes his offer where he will give them opportunity to leave the door, through the door, still standing. And then Bayamba, kind of holds a knife to the guy. Um, and the guy's like, well, he thought he was being gracious, and mom was like, well, he said, Bam says that he is too because he hasn't leaned in yet to cut the dude. Um, Marco asks who the guy is, and the guy says there are two answers to that question. One is that he's the owner of the chair Marco is sitting on, and two is he is the last face he will see before descending into darkness. And then he and Marco talk for a bit about the con sending him and everything. Um, Jingham is then back in the I think back in the royal court, and Ahmed tells him that Sadao killed the ambassadors that they thought he sent, and says that Sadao blames them for killing him, and that diplomacy is, Jingham says diplomacy is dead now, basically. And then Ahmed says that this is a good idea. This is good because it means Zhang is divided, and war will be how it ends. Ahmed then continues to counsel Jingham on going ahead to start a war with Zhang. And so then it cuts to Marco, Biamba, and the stranger riding on horses through the mountains, and Marco's wondering what the old man's name is, but Ginger says that he will never speak the old man's name again, regardless of if he knows what it is. And then you see, them sitting around, waiting for the old man, and Marco is wondering if the old man is a magic man, and but the stranger says the old man is a holy man, and they're as they're talking, they're smoking this stuff in this pipe, and apparently the stuff they're smoking is too potent for Marco, because then he starts tripping the fuck out, and his trip turns into a dream, kind of like a trip of him and Kokachin having sex, and then he awakens, to which the old man is sitting next to him. And so the old man pretty much eventually asks Marco why he is there, and Marco's like, first, let me have my men again, and then pretty much when Marco says that, someone puts a knife to Biamba's neck, and pretty much threatening to kill him, and then Marco's like, okay, fine. The reason I'm here is to get information about who hired the old man's assassins, and pretty much the old man's like, well, it's someone that's close to home. It's not anyone. It's not anyone associated to Sadao or Sadao himself. And then it cuts back to Mongolia, where a man goes to the assassin's cell, or where the assassin is being kept, and asks Yusuf how many more days and nights will this continue, and then continues to ask him what does Yusuf hope to gain from a man who he knows will give him nothing. And Yusuf says that he hopes for anything that will give him anything to avoid Ahmed's war. Ahmed's like, well, you and me, Yusuf, are not Mongolians. We're servants, and this isn't Ahmed's war. And Yusuf's like, well, this is something that Ahmed is fighting for. This war is something that Ahmed is so rapidly fighting for. And Ahmed says to Yusuf, well, this is the war that you're so rapidly against. And asks why he is, and Yusuf's like, well, the rebels have yet to step foot outside of Jiangnan for any purpose except for trading and traveling. And Ahmed's like, well, they're attacking his collectors as they raid the realm. And Ahmed's like, or Yusuf is like, well, the man will soon join his brothers, or they kind of squabble for a little bit longer, and then Yusuf's like, well, the man soon join his brothers, and if Ahmed has his way, the Mongols will soon join theirs. And then you see Sadao burning a letter that he got from Mei Lin, telling this woman that he is with, that someone attempted to kill the barbarian king. And then later you see Bayamba and Marco, you know, by a fire, and Bayamba's like, that you see Bayamba telling Marco that this is the map of his father's private quarters, so it must be someone in his service or someone he trusts. Marco says he may think he knows who did it, and tells him that it's someone who has already passed. And then it goes back to Mongolia, where Jane was told by Ahmed that the Khan has awakened, and then in Kublai's room, Kublai compliments Jangwon on all that he's done while Kublai has been unconscious and not going to war right away. And then you see Marco and Bayamba arrive back in town, and tell Kublai in private that they think it's someone that he knows and trusts, or believes, highly suspected as someone that he knows and trusts. And then Kublai asks both of them if anyone else knows this, and Marco just says only himself and Bayamba know it aside from Kublai. And Kublai says that he won't burden Jing with this information just yet. And then he orders both of them to follow where the map leads. And then as both Marco and Bayamba get up to leave, Kublai asks Marco to stay behind. And then when Bayamba leaves, he asks Marco if he thought of a punishment for his father. And Marco tells Kublai of his hopes / wishes of Kublai pardoning his father, and Kublai is like, well, why do you say that? I mean, do you think pardon is punishment? And so he basically makes Marco later brand Niccolo and Matteo on their right hands, and then Niccolo and Matteo watch as Marco leaves, and that's basically the end of the episode. So basically my predictions are that eventually, well, some of them are still a continuation of previous predictions, but my previous predictions that I'm still gonna make are, one, I think that Marco will end up having both a physical and romantic relationship with Kokachin, and it'll eventually be found out. I think that Kaido's daughter will end up getting pregnant by Marco, and it will be revealed. I also think that Mei Lin will end up eventually feeding Sadao false information about Kublai to make him look bad. But there's this new prediction with in regards to this episode. The person I think who hired the assassins is Ahmed, but it could very easily be Yusuf. And I think Yusuf hired the assassins to make it look like Ahmed hired them so that he would get in trouble because Ahmed is so readily willing to go to war against Sadao in this episode, even though he had no proof that it was actually Sadao. I think, and the reason I think it's Ahmed, respectively, is because, like I said, he's so ready to go into war against Sadao that he's willing to incapacitate Kublai um, to go straight into war. So that is my predictions. Those are my predictions for the overall season, and possibly even going into season 2, if some of these don't come to fruition right away. With that said, I still haven't seen episode 7 of Escape the Night come on to YouTube yet. I'm assuming they're gonna wait a little while to put that up, or put the second half of the season up. Is either that, or it's because they haven't taped the second half of the season yet. So I will make a video on episode 7 whenever they put that up. Let's see. Other than that, I will put up a 11/22/63 episode 2 review on Tuesday. And other than that, that's all for this video. Like if you hit like if you like my video. Hit subscribe if you want to see more of my videos. And comment if you want to comment on what I think so far of the series.